Very good. I'm just going to press that record button before I forget.
Right on. Go right for the record button.
Oh, it's kind of, oh yeah. Oh yeah, bring it on straight away. I like that kind of jumping in straight away, no messing. That's
Yeah, don't even anything. Go straight
no,
for it.
don't get into the zone or get yourself ready or anything like that. Just fucking make it uncomfortable immediately. Boom.
Now, do it.
Now this is it. It's actually brilliant. Your background is pretty amazing because I've just spent the last 45 minutes based on everything that you're about. The background, that it's so blurry, the way that camera has got there. Is that a camera or is that an actual background?
That is no, that is an actual background, and it's just blurry because the lens is expensive.
Yeah, it's a good lens. Okay, I'm gonna get one of those. Jesus.
Yeah, and the lens is expensive because the background's actually terrible and only looks good while it's out of focus.
Okay. Very good. Yeah, no, it really kind of, because I've been kind of going, I think I am your perfect subject for this because I've had glasses forever. And what's the problem? And even, I'm kind of jumping into it, but even of late, we'd say in the last year, I have been doing the thing that I just saw in your video you said definitely not do, which is I've been doing this obviously for a long time.
Yeah.
And now these just I can't work, so I'm here like this all the time. So I've obviously affected by doing this, using these. I'm jumping in straight away, but I have affected my long vision, and also so both my visions are affected, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So but at least I can see. I'm refusing to get bifocals. Anyway, sorry, I'm jumping in.
That's awesome. That's perfect.
I actually website called myopia. Sorry, yeah, go on, yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually myopia.org. I used to wear glasses like you. Actually, my glasses, just by the looks of it, were probably a bit stronger. That -5 diopters, pretty high. Okay. And I reversed all of that, which was a very long journey, long drawn out thing. Took me a long time because I started before the internet. And now I have 20/20 eyesight, and now I'm on a little bit of a crusade to help people realize that glasses are just one way to deal with eyesight.
Yeah. And what I like about what I've seen, I mean, I'm up until I received the email, I had no idea about this sort of thing. Maybe I had seen them, but it's something I was curious about when I was a kid, because I used to get my eyes and kind of go like this, and I kind of go, how come I can see perfect when I budge my eyes? And so it was always kind of in my mind. But what I like about just even what you said there is mostly when people talk like you've just talked, there is a pitch and there is a kind of a, okay, enter into, pay $50 a month, some beautiful long thing, and it's then pay $50 a month. The vast majority on your website seems to be free. So yeah. I just want to kind of say that at the start, because that's the kind of thing that's important.
And the thing is, I make money from investing in businesses and trading stock and other stuff. I think when it comes to internet businesses, myopia would really not be a very profitable adventure. So for the most part, it's free. Like I try to make it so that you don't need to spend money for anything, because while there is stuff that involves my help that isn't free and that helps pay for some of the behind the scenes stuff, other than that, I'm really mostly interested in it's nonsense, right? And I'm surrounded by friends and people that wear glasses, and I just want to start somewhere with saying glasses are one way, but it's not really the only answer.
And so somebody like me would have grown, my dad had glasses, my dad was bald, and I'm bald and I wear glasses, and I just assume that glasses are just a genetic thing and there's nothing you can do about it. And so you kind of just park it, more or less.
Yeah, and people assume that, and that's what retail optometry tells you for the most part when you walk in and you ask, if you dare to ask, they'll be like, oh, it's genetic. But the curious thing is it wasn't genetic 50 years ago. If you look at the rates of myopia incidence, they have skyrocketed. And incidentally, with industrialization, and now especially with screens, the myopia rates like in Hong Kong and Singapore are over 90% in school-age children. And there is no genetic change that happens in a matter of a decade or two. That's just not possible, right? Like the genetic argument doesn't really make sense.
Okay. So maybe because yeah, maybe start at the start. So somebody like me, I'm 18.
Oh,
I'm
now
in.
you want to start at the start.
Yeah. 18. I'm in a classroom, and I suddenly struggle to see a little bit what's on the. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. I struggled to see something that was on the blackboard, and so one thing led to another, and I ended up in an optician, and he gave me glasses. And from there, over a quick period of time, it got worse and worse. And then it's kind of just stagnated then for the last maybe 15 years. It hasn't got worse, really. It's kind of, hemmed and hawed. But that was the typical thing that happens.
That's what happens to most people. Now it happens at younger ages because now parents put their kids in front of an iPad for babysitting. So this whole thing just happens sooner. But basically, a little bit for reference here, for scholar.google.com, Google's clinical research and science search engine, I always recommend to people because there's a lot of nonsense that happens on the internet. And myopia is swimming in this sea of alternative health related stuff. And I always tell people, go to Google Scholar and see what the science says, see what the research says, see if there's any evidence to support these crazy claims. And in case of myopia, what you started with when in school you started having issues is a thing called pseudo-myopia, Pseudo myopia. Or a more fancy term that you also find a lot on Google Scholar is near-induced transient myopia. Near-induced meaning caused by looking at close-up objects, and transient meaning it would go away on its own, right? And when you type these terms into Google Scholar, you're going to get thousands, if not tens of thousands of results pointing to clinical studies that substantiate this whole idea that myopia, for the most part, starts out as a pseudo thing, as a near-induced thing caused by your homework, right? Like you spent too much time in front of books and screens. And it would have gone away if you hadn't gone to the optometrist and if instead you would have spent less time in front of books.
Wow.
By the way, can I be super unprofessional for a second and just try and push a button on this air conditioning thing?
Yeah. Do whatever. I might just bring up your website just for a moment. I can share it on the screen. And I just wanted to
terrible,
I suppose what I'm drawing attention to really is that it's like I said, this is a bit of passion work here, so that's probably why it's not slick, but I'm more so excited about the fact that if you get at all interested in this rabbit hole, there's a humongous amount of free information here about helping your eyes.
It isn't slick, but I'm actually working on a version 2 of this whole thing. It's been this way for a bazillion years. That's going to be a little bit easier to get into. Right now, it's like just all the evidence that I've collected over the last decade and thousands of people's of improvement results and science studies. And it's all just mixed in and piled in. And whenever I have a new thing that comes up, I just write about it. So for people who just get started, it's a little tiny bit overwhelming at the moment.
Yeah, well, it's kind of funny because I watched your video, and your video, just the opening video on YouTube, and your opening video is kind of, you want your steps. You want the steps. And I was kind of going, yeah, I want the steps. Like, and then I went, he's got me. So, yeah.
And that's kind of, so the thing has evolved it was first a procrastination thing, right? And then like in the morning I'd have coffee and I'd mess with stuff, and that became kind of myopia. And it just kind of morphed slowly. And for people, till actually I started doing these podcasts, I didn't even realize how terrible the experience is for a new person jumping in. because it has existed for so long. And right, we have this Facebook group with 15,000 some odd members, and we've got a forum that's huge and all this stuff where it's turned into kind of an echo chamber of people who get it. And then whenever somebody shows up and goes, just give me these tips, I'm always like, dude, it'll take a little figuring, do some reading. But I realize now, especially like you and I are talking, right? And it makes me feel a little guilty because I'm like, well, Frank doesn't know. It's not his fault. Yeah. And I'm not making it super easy as an entry point where I just say, here's all the stuff, right? Like, good luck.
Well, in a way though, in the video, I thought on your YouTube channel, whilst you did kind of give your reasons for it not being so straightforward. And then I kind of went, yeah, you're right in a way, because what you're saying is the first thing is at least begin to educate yourself on this subject, and on this, if you're affected by this, learn just a little bit about it. And once I kind of had got that kind of idea in my mind, that otherwise, like you say, how are you supposed to trust somebody who's saying this? How are you supposed to, if you're not going to inform yourself? And what you're saying throughout is that there is the science there is reasons for it, and that's kind of comforting. That brings me in a little bit. I still liked even the way you give a kind of exercise about, what to do, even if it's a tiny simple thing. I think I'm the sort of person that likes to do immediately, get some sort of kind of a tiny insight that I'm on the path, or makes sense. And then
right.
I'll do more.
And that's what the new version of the site will have, is because the starting point, I believe, is understanding how easy it is to measure your eyesight. Because really what happens is the optometrist takes you into this magical, mysterious room and has all these expensive tools, and you get taken out of your comfort zone to a point where you just accept their authority, and you assume it's like one of those magic shows, like the hand tricks where it's like, whoop, quickly, now you see it, now you don't. Where the reality is, myopia, your glasses, is just a measurement of distance to blur. How far can you see before the blur starts, right? And you can measure that. Let's say, for example, 50 centimeters. And then you just divide 100 by 50 centimeters, and that's your diopters. So if you can see...
I was going to just stop you for 1 second, because I think that's really, just so I can get into... obviously, we've never considered I've never considered the way you just described it there, that it's distance to blur. The only thing that I've ever kind of considered is, okay, the items are blurry, and it started off with, he shows me a list of all the letters, and I can't see the bottom ones, and maybe I can see the big ones. And that's how it's presented. So it's interesting. So that's why I'd like, when you say distance to blur, if you can explain just a little bit better but just for me, I like that way of looking at it.
Right, sure. And that's what I want to start the website off, like the next version of it. Because the thing is, you can read the big letters and not the small letters, but the big letters are also blurry, right? Like you can only see, like if you're sitting in front of a book is ideal. A book works better than a screen, because just printed page, and you take it and you hold it close enough to your face where the letters on the page are perfectly clear. And then you slowly move the book further away and further till you hit the point where the letters are not perfectly clear anymore. And it's really an exercise of finding that exact point where there's any kind of change in the clarity of the letters. And that distance is where your refractive error, is where the blur starts, is where your myopia starts. And the only thing the optometrist measures with all their fancy equipment is the distance to blur. That's all it is. So if you want to know how strong are my glasses, or what kind of glasses do I need, or how bad is my eyesight, it literally only requires for you to look at a printed page and see how far you can move it back where the blur starts, right? And I was using the 50 centimeters as an example because diopters, what they call a prescription, right? It's just a piece of plastic in front of your face. But that diopter number is just the distance that you can see, 100 divided by that distance, right? So if you can see 50 centimeters before the blur starts, you divide 100 by 50, and that's 2. That means your glasses are 2 diopters, right? And the 2 diopters, all that diopter means is you need 2 diopters to correct your vision to see quote unquote 20/20, because otherwise you have blur at 50 centimeters. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, it does. Yeah. And so then that occurred at a certain point the first time. And in my mind, I was kind of thinking about this. I presume, like everything in the body, is some sort of muscle, be it the flexibility of the mind and the brain, or your arms, or this is a kind of a question, or your eyes. And suddenly, because you've been putting this strain on the eyes, instead of your eyes helping your eyes adjust to it, you've stopped them adjusting to it. And this is a kind of a question so I can understand it in my language, that instead of, say, for example, if I'm not working out, instantly I can feel my arms losing their kind of strength, and I can just leave, and a bit of sagginess kicking in, and I can feel that softness there, right? And
yeah, feeling it today.
with
right
the
now.
coffee, and with the eyes, I think what you're kind of saying is that at a certain point, this transient thing happened. We presume that it's, instead of allowing the eyes adjust and improve, or helping the eyes adjust and improve at that time to the new strain that it's brought on, to the books, all the books that it's been looking at,
it's a super simple thing.
Yeah, go on, sorry. Yeah.
It's actually a really super simple, and I didn't mean to create any suspense on this one, but it's actually, the way that it works is it's a ball, right? Like it's a ball in your skull, and the front of the ball is a lens, a flexible lens that shapes with a circular muscle called the ciliary muscle. So when you look at something up close, that muscle gets tight and it reshapes the lens, and then the lens changes where the light focuses in the back of the ball, where the retina is that receives that signal. So it's a ball, on the front is a lens, and on the back is the receiver of the light. And the lens's job is to change where the light focuses depending on how close or how far you look at something.
Okay.
That muscle is relaxed when you look at a distance, because biologically, the way we're functioning, or design-wise, is most of the time we're looking at relatively more distant objects, right? And less of the time we're looking at close-up objects. So the design is, since we use this close-up distance less, we put the strain at the place where sometimes we look at a close-up thing. The problem is now you're looking at a book for 4 hours, right? And then you're looking at a screen for 2 hours, and you're looking at a monitor, like you're spending hours and hours with that muscle really tense. So what happens is the muscle was tense for so long, so many hours, that now all of a sudden when you look in the distance and the muscle is meant to relax, it's stuck. It's a muscle spasm, basically. Myopia, pseudo-myopia, near-induced transient myopia, your initial early myopia was a spasm of your focusing muscle, nothing else.
Wow.
Right? Like, I pause there just to let that sink in, because that's not what the optometrist tells you.
No.
No.
So, but obviously not. They sell you glasses and multiple different types of lens, from glare to whatever it is, and it ends up going from $99 or €99 to whatever, a lot more.
Oh, can I comment on that? Just since we're there, the wholesale cost of those 99 whatever pound, dollar, euro lenses, wholesale, they're 50 cents to $2, or call it, 50 cents to €2, is what the optometrist pays for those pieces of plastic, including all the coatings. So the thing that you're paying €99 for costs the optometrist €2.
Now, you tell me, say these aren't so good, these ones I'm wearing, but the last glasses, I got everything coated. I got the glare, the whatever it was, let's just say, and they were a good pair of lenses or a good pair of frames. So the whole lot probably cost me €500.
$2, €2 for the lenses. There's a LA Times article that I really found interesting that was talking about lens crafters that exposes this whole thing. And I previously, because I have friends that sell lenses, and I've seen all the wholesale price lists, but that's, you know, people are like, well, Jake could be making this stuff up. But that LA Times article, an executive from Lens Crafters, which is the biggest optical chain in the US, was talking about the amazing scale of the ripoff that lenses are. And he's quoted in there saying they're making 5,000% markups, and it is $2.